Music, dance, theater. It's time to take a seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez. Hear from performers, producers, presenters, and creators who enrich our lives in the performing arts. Who's on stage? Here is Tom Alvarez to introduce you.
Hello, and welcome to On the Aisle with yours truly, Tom Alvarez. My guest on today's episode is Melissa Errico, actor, singer, recording artist, and writer. She has appeared on Broadway and is a cabaret and concert star. Join me now as I go on the aisle with Melissa.
Who wants to live in New York? Who wants the worry, the noise, the dirt, the heat? Who wants the garbage cans clanging in the street? Suddenly I do. They're always popping their cork. The cops, the cabbies, the salesgirls up at Saks. You gotta have a real taste for maniacs. Suddenly I do. Once I hated this city, now it can't get me down. Slushy, humid, and gritty, what a pretty town. What thought I could be duller, more depressing, less gay? Now my favorite color is gray. A wall of rain as it turns to sleet, the lack of sun on a one-way street. I love the grime all the time, and what more do I need? My window pane has a lovely view, an inch of sky and a fly or two. Why, I can see half a tree, and what more do I need? The dust is thick and it's galling, it simply can't be excused. In winter even the falling snow looks used. My window pane may not give much light, but I see you, so the view is bright. If I can love you, I'll pay the dirt no heed. With your love, what more do I need? Someone's shouting for quiet, someone's starting a brawl. Down the block there's a riot, and I'll buy it all. Listen now, I'm ecstatic. Hold me close and be still. Hear the lovely pneumatic drill. A subway train thunders through the Bronx, a taxi horn on the corner honks. But I adore every roar, and what more do I need? I hear a crane making street repairs, a 2-ton child running wild upstairs. Steam pipes bang, sirens clang, and what more do I need? The neighbors yell in the summer, the landlord yells in the fall. So loud I can't hear the plumber pound the wall. An aeroplane roars across the bay, but I can hear you as clear as day. You said you loved me above the sound and speed. With your love, what more do I need?
Oh, you're playing my music there, Tom. Thank you so much.
Melissa, thank you so much for sending me some of your recordings for use in this show. What was that first piece that we just heard in the intro?
That was Who Wants to Live in New York. That's one of my Sondheim from one of my Sondheim albums. Mm-hmm. That's one of my favorite songs. You know, before we start, this is such a special interview because I love you so much, but we're always talking about our dreams. That for me is the song that epitomizes trying to make it in New York. You know, you arrive, you have a dream, you're happy, even if your apartment has no view and is borderline a closet. You're just so happy that you got to New York, you got there. And so there's something so youthful about it. And of course, it's one of Sondheim's early songs. But anyway, so let's get started.
Thank you again for, finding the time to fit me into your schedule. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yes, it's funny because the first time that we ever met, I was fitting you into my schedule and I was in Norway. I was in
That's
Oslo.
right.
My kids had just gone dog sledding, and I was in the middle of a slightly misbegotten Christmas holiday where we were looking for the atmosphere of a snow globe, absolutely beautiful and Arcadian little town. And we ended up in Oslo, which is very similar to Pittsburgh. And so my kids that day had solved a little bit of a problem by going off and finding its dog sledding, which turned into not the most idealized version of it. They were actually put on dog sleds with nobody explaining how you do it. And they just took off. And my husband said that one of the girls went flying into the forest and the dogs don't come back for you. So the girl was just walking for like an hour to find everybody. It was just a disaster. And I was in the meantime trying to find you on Zoom,
Well, I looked at my files I want to remember when it was that was prior to your coming to Feinstein's at Hotel Carmichael here in Indy.
That's right. It was
that was the reason we talked to plug that show.
That's right, and you filled the house. We turned out to have a really good show. Good 2 or 3 nights, yeah.
And I wanted to point out that that interview and the review is on my website, tomalvarez.studio. So for our listeners who aren't familiar with you or are. They should go to my website, tomalvarez.studio, and all of that is archived. So I encourage everybody to read about a lot of your background. But I'm just going to jump around today. I love having this podcast because I can have authentic conversations. And it's not like journalism, Q&A, right?
Yeah.
So be prepared. We're going for a ride here.
You ride well. It's like a sleigh ride.
A lot of your stuff that a lot of my questions or comments have to do with your Facebook posts. You're so great on social media, with your.
Well, that's nice coming from you, who I think is quite a handsome addition to my social media community. I
love your the way you share your experiences and. For instance, I saw, and I'm very sorry, I wish I knew more, but perhaps you'll tell me about, you just lost a close friend and a colleague, Russ Malone.
I lost my guitar player.
My goodness.
My band. But he's one of, the great guitar players in history. Is just a kind of a lark that I was able to meet him when I had the opportunity to make a tribute album to Michel Legrand after I'd already worked with Michel Legrand, the great French film composer, Hollywood composer, Streisand scribe. He wrote Yentl, the movie Yentl. And when he passed away, I was making a tribute album to him, and I was looking for an extraordinary guitar player to add to what I was calling the B side of the original album I made with Michel. I added a B side and we released it again as Legrand Affair Deluxe, like a deluxe record in honor of his passing, and just another way of saying how much I love you, Michel, as he left us. And so Russ Malone came into my life because he saw Michel Legrand, and Russ is a big deal. So he's like, I'm going to do the record. He's a really smooth guy, and we met in the studio, and Russ is what the masters always are, very relaxed, no stress, listens to what people are trying to accomplish in the studio. And we set out to do a few songs with him in trio version, and then I wanted a plaintive version of What Are You Doing the Rest of Your Life with just guitar voice. So blessedly, I have that, and it's my only guitar voice track I've ever made. So it's with Russ Malone. Long story short, we've done another album together and many live performances. It's a perfect example of the fetishes that I have for great talent and for musicians and instrumentalists. And he's one of those people that the minute I played with him, I enjoyed him. I made sure that he was in the film noir album release. He worked with Diana Krall and so many great people. And he has that sound that right away makes you know this is an album. You're in an authentic, real jazz world. He's an older Black man. He's got every aspect of jazz and soul in his hands. He worked with George Benson. So he's just a real icon. And he wasn't that old. And I can't speak of how he passed. I believe it was a heart attack, and unexpected and completely wrong and too fast. And basically he disappeared is what it feels like. Yeah, he just disappeared. So that was just, I only heard about it 2 nights ago, and I was about to go on stage in Provincetown, and Ted told me, Russ just died. And my eyes just lit up with tears. And I feel like those men, when we're backstage getting ready for a show, I feel like they are my brothers and my family. And it's like more important to me. It's just more important to me than any other creative relationships I've ever had. They last longer than when you're in the theater and shows open and close, because your musicians stay with you. And as you evolve and come up with new sets and new songs and new gigs and new cities to play, your musicians stay around you. Whereas shows combust and close. The costs go away, the play goes away. But when you're a creative artist in the music sense and you're making music, which has been much more my post-Broadway undertaking that I've been doing this decade, people like Russ are the paintbrushes that you all paint with together. And what a great loss for me. His great thing with me, which you're probably quoting me on Facebook in your mind, I did just post about hearing about him passing just before I went on stage. I tripped over my own set list, which is the very last encore, was What Are You Doing the Rest of Your Life, which was my duet with Russ. And I hadn't even thought of it. So while I was singing, I went, oh no, this is my song with Russ. So I kind of had a celestial quality, and I took the microphone and I put it away, and I sang to the audience without any microphone.
Sure, that was moving. And, again, in that same post, you included a picture with you and Ted. And my connection with Ted is I've seen him any number of times with Michael Feinstein. And for our listeners who don't know who Ted is, he is an incredible composer, pianist, music director for, talk about big names, and every musicians all over if not the world, country world, know of Ted Firth. And, he's such a humble man. I did an interview with him on this podcast. I don't know if you heard it, but I think your name came up. I know a number of people that and so he's. Well, that's the same theme. He happened to be at your show that night, Ted. Was that the circumstance? Ted Firth, was he at your show?
Ted was playing piano for me just this weekend, and we heard about Russ passing. So, Ted is kind of, when you're a piano player, it's different than the other cats, as it were. You're a saxophone player, a trumpet player. Even your drummer or your bass player, those are still ancillary workers, in some ways. They'll hate me for saying that, but they're still part of the scaffolding. But the actual 2 pillars are me and Ted, usually, or me and a pianist. Those are the 2 pillars of every performance.
Let's take a break and listen to another of your works, Melissa. And what will that be?
Okay, let's listen to Little Boy Lost, which is a song by Michel Legrand, and it's swinging kind of jazz trio, but really enjoy that swing guitar. That's Russ.
Little boy lost, in search of little boy found. You go a wandering, stumbling, tumbling round. When will you find what's on in search of little boy true. Will you be ever done traveling, always unraveling you? Running away could lead you further astray. And as for fishing in streams for pieces of dreams, those pieces will never fit. What is the sense of it? What is the sense of it, little boy blue? Don't let your little sheep roam. It's time, come blow your horn, meet the morn, look and see, can you be far from
I love Michel Legrand, and you're such a great interpreter of his. So thank you for bringing that. And the connections go on and on. I can see on your Facebook page, and you also did a post on Marilyn Maye. You spent some time with Marilyn, and our connection with Marilyn is I wrote a story about her. Yeah. And I interviewed her on this podcast. And, oh my God, that was
came to that
career highlight. It was because you interviewed her in the New York Times, for God's sake. And so, and I spoke with her on this podcast just a few weeks after her Carnegie Hall. And that's what that was the
I was helping her with that. Yeah,
about her prior to that concert.
I was the hype for Carnegie Hall. Yeah,
our lives have become mesh. And
share a common love. A certain style of music, a certain style of community, really. Which is a little bit. Possibly a little bit fading, and in some ways, in other ways, it's outshines everything else because beautiful people.
The other connection we have for our listeners, Melissa, you have a very close friend in Indianapolis who I met the night of your show, Beth Clary Schweier.
Yes.
So, let's give her a shout out and let our Indianapolis audience, or anybody, let's talk about her work.
Well, Beth is an impressionist. Beth is a painter. She is a mother. She is a great visionary, really. She can see. It's funny. It ties back to my Facebook page again, in a way, because she reintroduced herself to me. We had met in another life, but she saw my 3 daughters when they were small in a photograph on my Facebook page, and they were running in the grass, and they were all in the same dress. And each one looked sort of the same, but had an essential quality that makes them very different. There's Victoria in the front with, you can sense glasses and a sort of a leadership quality. Juliet was in the middle, who's very ebullient, and her arms are over her head, and she has all these curls, and she's muscular and a bit tall, and she was doing something silly. And then Diana is smaller and was behind, like catching up, and a little more quiet by nature, in just the same 3 yellow dresses. So Beth did an oil painting and wrote to me on Facebook and said, I've painted your daughters. I couldn't help myself. And that began, I mean, I got a painting from her 3 weeks ago. My house is full of her work. I almost feel like if this were a visual show, I could take you. So I have the 3 girls. I bought that over in the living room. She did a picture of Victoria, who's now a tennis player at Duke University. She took a picture of, I had a picture of Victoria that was as a little ballerina looking a little nervous about to go on stage in a show. And you can see her in the stage lights in this pretty ballerina outfit. Beth loves to do ballerinas. So anyhow, long story short is my home is full of anecdotes and moments of beautiful youth girls, teenage girls in bloom. And Beth has repeatedly painted them. And I am trying so much to capture them. So they won't.
And you know, the night that we met and you introduced me to Beth, the next day you actually went to her gallery, which is in Indianapolis, and it's a neighborhood called Irvington, where I used to live. I lived there for years, and how did I not meet her? I don't know.
People should go because the gallery is so special. It's as authentic as any gallery in Paris.
She has a website, so listeners around the country could probably, connect with her on her website and buy her art too, right?
Oh, you have to. People interested in roses, anything to make a room, it'll bring a whole room to life. And she's just come back from a whole summer in Paris, so she has the Eiffel Tower and gardens, and she's done the work of her life.
She had a big show, and apparently she repeated it. It was so successful. She sold a lot of the work, but it was not just her, or some of her colleagues as well. C.W. Mundy, did you happen to see his work in her gallery?
Is that her teacher?
Yes, that is her teacher.
That's her teacher. So that's a very famous person from Indianapolis who is like the Monet of your
exactly.
America.
And that would be him. And I think he was recently in Europe and in Paris, and some of that work was in Beth's show. So there, we just gave her a really big commercial. Yeah.
And I love her so much. And, I can segue right back to my music because I have a great sensitivity for painting. One of the happiest musicals I ever did began the entire enterprise that defines my life today, which is I was in Sunday in the Park with George.
Oh, my goodness. Yes. I hadn't realized that you had done that show. Where did you do the show and when?
I was in the first major revival, and it was at the Kennedy Center in that extraordinary thing known as the Sondheim Celebration at the Kennedy Center, where all his works were done in repertory. And that was the incredible summer where Stokes did Sweeney Todd, and they did Company.
You are original in my mind. You are a one-of-a-kind performer. Your voice, your showmanship, and I said as much in my review, as you recall, or maybe you didn't even get a chance to read it. Do you read your reviews?
Well, when they're from you and you quoted them or you post them, and I feel that it's sort of a colleague or somebody who shares a joy of it, and I don't think you would be nasty. I think as I get older, I'm not avoiding them. To be honest, I don't go running and make sure I got a good review, though. No.
Yeah.
I don't anymore, but I do need the publicity to make sure I can survive the gig. I'm a little like Marilyn May now, because Marilyn is always, up on stage at Carnegie Hall saying, I got a Christmas show in Birdland.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Tom, I'm so famous for forgetting to tell people when my next show is, forgetting to tell them there's a merch table, putting the merch table anywhere near the door so that people will see it.
Yeah.
I leave most of my jobs saying I need to be less artistic.
Yeah. Well, I don't begrudge anybody. You need to make a living, and you do what you can and all. But
yeah, well, it's always a tricky balance with what we do. How much to digress from the music or not. But it sounds like
speaking of Sondheim, or did you speak? You said something that reminded me. I wanted before to be inspired inspired for this interview. I wanted to go back and review your work. And so I looked at all your YouTubes, particularly a lot of the ones you posted at 54 Below, when it was Feinstein's. And I came across one, which is one of my favorite Sondheims, and it's Losing My Mind. And of course, I thought of Bernadette's version. And, you have a similarity. I mean, you're both very different, but you also, I'm sure you've been told this before, you have the same sort of, I don't know, you both go deep emotionally. And I think that your interpretation of that just really gave me chills. I love that song. I love the way you did it. So it's no surprise to me that you were in Sunday in the Park with George. And so ultimately, how did your Sondheim recording do?
Well, I
Sondheim Sublime.
That was the first one. And then there's a new one called Sondheim in the City.
Yes.
I just put out. So I have a third in my brain. So
really?
Yes. The first one was in 2018. My children were young, and I've made I have been not shy about this. It's actually in all my interviews. I was at a time in my life where I had my first health scare. And I felt very fragile. I felt a little worried. And I was thinking about what I've learned on this earth. And if I was at a moment where it turned out I'm okay, but I knock on wood, but I was feeling very philosophical about what matters in life. And I immediately that at the same time that was happening, 54 Below asked me to do a night, and everything was kind of converging. And I said, the only thing I can do at the moment and be natural and honest and will be real easy, I said to myself, would be Sondheim, because Sondheim was I thought could give me all the answers, and I could, for some reason, I didn't know him as well. I knew his music. I've done a few of his musicals, 4 of his musicals, 3 with him. I did Sunday in the Park with George, Do I Hear a Waltz, and Passion. Then I did Into the Woods. He knew I was in it. He didn't come to those rehearsals, but he did the first 3, and I know him, and I have many, many emails with him, but he knew that I was troubled about my health. And I told him, I want to make a tribute album to you. And he saw my concert, which was a great success, called Sondheim Sublime. And I did many after I recorded as well. And it was an era of my life where I was looking at his idea, we disappoint, we die, but we don't. We disappear, we die, but we don't. The idea that the careful the tales you tell, that is the spell. The idea that what we say and do now will last beyond us. And that's very thematic in his work. In Into the Woods, with Children Will Listen. Careful the tale you tell, that is the spell. Children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Not just in parenting, but also this idea that we choose now what thoughts we want to grow in the world, and they'll grow past us. And so anyhow, so I did sort of beautiful philosophical, thinking, and his beautiful and philosophical songs like Goodbye for Now, Move On, Not While I'm Around, With So Little to Be Sure Of, Loving You. So it was that kind of a record. It was a lyrical record. It was an inward facing record, and not a sad record, but a philosophical and beautiful record with a little fear in it. Fear about things. In fact, it was called Sondheim Sublime. And right. To turn back to Beth, our friend, our painter, the Sublime was a movement in oil painting in Britain in the 1800s with Turner's work. The Sublime movement was paintings that are where beauty meets terror.
The English painter.
The English painter. The idea is where beauty meets terror. Mm-hmm. He did shipwrecks. He did very troubled oceans, glaciers that were scary and grand. So it was natural things that seemed beautiful, but a little scary. So where beauty and terror cross. So I did Sondheim Sublime, which is the beautiful things in life, but that little undertow of terror. Sondheim thought the whole thing was he didn't understand the word sublime, and I was telling him that Wordsworth used the word, and all these intellectual conversations we had would come back to, him going, I don't know. It seems a bit grand of a word. He was shy of it. And
did you happen to come to know his husband, Jeffrey Romley?
Yes, I know him quite well.
And what was Jeffrey's reaction to the album? And I often wonder, I came to know him through a mutual friend. I haven't talked with him for a while, but I've often wondered, how does he handle? I mean, Sondheim's music is omnipresent. Does he embrace it? Does he shy away from it? I just am curious.
It's going to sound crazy, but I didn't know Jeff other than to meet him backstage until about the last year or so. I put out another record called Sondheim in the City, which is all the fun songs and, well, not really fun, but they're edgy in Manhattan. It's all his Manhattan shows and songs that illuminate like Manhattan for me. Another 100 People and songs about marriage, little things you do together and Good Thing Going and Everybody Says Don't, which is, urban from Anyone Can Whistle, the song Anyone Can Whistle, Being Alive. I did a wonderful and really energetic CD of his Manhattan music, as it were. This is the year I met Jeff. So I didn't discuss all this heartfelt, vulnerable stuff with Jeff because that was a long time ago. My recent work with Sondheim's music has been a lot of Follies songs because that's also one of his New York shows. And I have a family history. My Aunt Rose was a favorite of Ziegfeld. So I have the Follies history. So I did a lot of Follies music. So Jeff has been in my life. He texted me a couple of months ago, asked me to be his date to Here We Are for the opening night. I don't know where he got his idea that I should be his date, but I accepted. And this week, he's asked me to go sailing with him.
Oh, wow. And he's a photographer, so maybe he'll do your portrait.
I have to say, I'm quite smitten.
But although he does trees, he does abandoned houses in the country, and he likes to go to those big monster truck things. He loves sort of cultures, subcultures, if you will. So anyway, I wondered if you had come to know him. And
I'm getting to know him. I'm getting to know him more. Our friendship
just give him my regards, and I just love his humility and the fact that he's Stephen's rock.
Yes, he has an angelic quality to him. I think Stephen has only loved this man, and my few interactions with Jeff have been so beautiful, and I find him to be such an extraordinary person, which would match perfectly that the greatest.
And we share the person who I think you reached out to him, or he told you about me, and that would be Anthony Nunziata.
That's right. That's right.
He's also been on this podcast, and he was the one. Jeff contacted him because through Facebook. Anyway, long story, but isn't it 2 degrees of separation in show business, though, isn't it? Maybe it's even 1 degree. I don't know.
Well, I think that's kind of thematic to everything, is that we're all connected. That would be something we come to as we get older. We realize.
Yeah, before you get away, I've got to hear another piece of your music. What will be the third selection that we're sharing with our listeners today?
So here's one of these songs from Sondheim Sublime that we were just talking about. Sondheim Sublime featured so many beautiful songs, but this is really one of my favorites. It's from a musical called Passion and a song called Loving You. And this is Ted Firth on the piano.
Loving you is not a choice. It's who I am. Loving you is not a choice, and not much reason to rejoice. But it gives me purpose, gives me voice to say to the world, this is why I live. You Loving you is why I do the things I do. Loving you is not in my control, but loving you, I have a goal for what's left of my life. I will live, and I would die for you. Loving you is why I do the things I do. Loving you is not in my control, but loving you, I have a goal for what's left of my life. I will live, and I would die for you.
I know you're on a schedule, and I can't leave without.
Oh, it's okay.
I wore this in your honor. I'm wearing a Provincetown sweatshirt in your honor because you just came back from there. How was P-Town? And had you ever performed there before?
Yes, I have been there for about five, 6 years.
Why I'm not surprised that the gays love you.
I don't know. I would never assume that because you have to work real hard. But I think this summer, I say this every summer, but I think this summer we went even further. Mark Cortali is a wonderful producer, and he produced me all the years I've gone there.
And what's the venue you played?
This time it was the Provincetown Theater.
Okay, yeah. I saw the photos, and it looked like a theater as opposed to a club or something.
Yeah, this is the first year they put me in a theater because the art house has changed ownership, and this is the first year that Marilyn May played Town Hall, and so I stayed an extra night, and that was yesterday.
Oh, that's why all those pictures were, and of course Ted Firth. How did you split him up?
The producer organized it so that he played for me on Saturday night and he played for her on Sunday night. The producer organized it and he kept me a day longer because he knew I'd want to go to Maryland.
I'm so jealous. I wish I could have been there. I used to go to P-Town regularly, like 6 summers in a row. And I just miss it so much. I yearn for it. Let's
do it next summer.
That would be so cool. Are you playing there next summer or this summer?
I'd be surprised after this weekend. I'd be surprised I don't come back. I feel like I hope I'll be there.
What do you like about it?
Well, I loved that Marilyn was in the audience and Randy Roberts, the drag queen, was there, and so many. Well, he's not a drag queen. He's an artist, and he's a brilliant artist. He does do drag, though. But the community there is really getting to know me. And I think they demand that you go further than your typical entertainment. They really want to know what you're working out in your life. You can say things in P-Town that will stay in P-Town.
Mm-hmm.
it's like it might be like what Bette Midler used to do, and she used to just share her secrets and unfiltered. I think it almost got passionate and sexy and manic and personal, but we also
let me share a stereotype. We love to dish. We like to dish. We like to hear it. And it's all good heart. It's all fun, of course. But yeah,
of course. But yeah, there was a little, I did address some dish, and I did some sexy things and some parodies. I wrote an original parody. Well, actually, I had about 3 or 4 parodies in the show, which was fun because Marilyn May, the next night, she puts little original things into her show.
Well, of course, there's a good percentage of lesbians who love P-Town too. So were they in the audience as well? Was it diverse?
Well, there were women in the audience. I don't know I think there may be some lesbians there, but I was interested to come back for Women's Week, which I think is.
Well, there you go. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine. How popular you will become popular. There's no question. So, how many years have you gone there?
Oh, at least 6 or about 6. But this year was really well. Every year I say this, but anyway, so it's been going great. I had. There was a year. Okay. Yeah. So
let's just sort of, for people, what would you like to share about your upcoming let's tell people how they can find you. You're on all social media, right? You're on Facebook.
I would say if you could spell my name, you're good, because you'll find everything. Melissa is Melissa. And Errico, ERRICO. I have a website, melissaerrico.com. And usually from there, you can find my YouTube channel and you can find my Instagram. And if you're interested in my old cooking show, I had a very funny.
You have a cooking show? I didn't know this.
I have a funny cooking show.
And where's this?
That's all. It was all broadcast by Instagram, so you can find that in my. I think it's called Instagram TV.
What's your specialty?
Survival.
Well, I mean, is it a certain ethnic food, or is this general American? What is it?
I think you could say it's a sort of a mingling of European things. But each show had a historical story, like the history of pesto. I learned the history of pesto, and I would give you these interesting stories about ancient mortar and pestles and where
that sounds so nerdy, but I love it.
It's nerdy and a little desperate because I'm a housewife. I was a housewife through the pandemic who didn't know how to cook that well because because I was a showgirl, and my pianists and musicians, they don't ask me to cook for them. So I found myself in the pandemic to be a woman with some strong deficits in the.
Did you watch cooking shows and YouTubes and all that?
No, I got recipes, and I did all this to amuse my family. I got recipes and historical facts, and then some music, and then outfits. And I put the white hat and the big hoop earrings and the sparkly, sexy things, and I would put on my apron, and I would really get you through how to do it. I wasn't goofing around. You can really learn how to cook beautiful meals from
So how's your Italian?
My Italian is not as good as my French. My French is in nice shape.
Okay. Well, this is so much fun, and we're going to cross paths sooner or later. I just know it. When are you coming back to Indy? Any dates booked?
Well, no dates for Indy, but I'll take a moment to tell you a little bit about what's ahead. So I am doing this year the most extraordinary kind of blooming in a way of this. Yes, a little nerdy. The undertakings that I've been doing are a little nerdy, but people are catching on and enjoying them. The Metropolitan Museum of Art has me singing a concert at the Cloisters in October. And David Shire, the Broadway composer, has written a musical, a song cycle to go with the Cloisters, and it could very easily go to Broadway, about the life of Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Oh my goodness.
The French queen. So I'm doing that in October, but before that, I'm going to sing at the U.S. Open. I'm going to work with Billy Stritch
with a military orchestra in Washington, D.C., doing an extraordinary evening celebrating the First World War. And we're going to sing After You've Gone, Alexander's Ragtime Band, this type of stuff, because the first ever World War I memorial is being lit across the street from the White House. And we all think of Vietnam, we think of the Second World War, but wouldn't you know it, there never was a national monument to the First World War. There was a District of Columbia for the people who had served, but there has never been a national monument. So it's arrived, it's there now as we speak, but it will be lit on September 13th. And Billy Stritch and I are the celebrational entertainment, and we're going to work with the military orchestra and sing World War I jazz.
Boy, you really get some gigs that have some meat to them. I mean,
That's my point. It's just been
really uncommon stuff, right?
It's just been amazing. And there's things like that. I'll be in Vegas. I'll be singing Sondheim with Ted Firth all over. And we have our concert hall debut in London coming up next year, doing Sondheim in London on July 12th.
Oh boy.
There's so many other things, but that's the idea. It's just wonderful to see that what I thought was a weird undertaking, which is to do concerts that are a little intellectual, but that have jazz in them, and where I could wear something sexy. I thought maybe I could put all this together.
That's one of the things that I'm attracted to your work is the intellectual content. You make people think, and I like being challenged. And to be not only challenged intellectually, but also be entertained with music. I mean, this is special. It's special to have both of those things happening. And, what did I call you? I told you reminded me of that Hollywood star who used to, she wore the long red sort of hair. What was her name? Anyway.
I don't know, but you're reminding me that you and I had talked about this once, that there's a quote that follows me around. A critic called me Jessica Rabbit with a PhD.
But she was modeled after this film star that I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. She was married, Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth.
Oh, I wasn't sure if you meant her. That would be too much.
You were really, whatever you wore that night, I think too, was just so glamorous. You look like a film star. So
I have a little bit of that slapstick Broadway personality because I'm rolling my bag city to city. I have, been writing these crazy little stories times about, it's not very, I think Rita Hayworth had a slightly more glamorous path than.
Yeah. Well, but you carried yourself like her, and that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You look at, it was very glamorous too. So you have that going for you too. So you're like a triple threat. You're smart, you're talented, and you're gorgeous. So there you have it. So what about your writing? I mean, are you still doing freelance for publications like the New York Times?
Well, I have a piece I just wrote for a magazine, but my editors changed at the Times. The editor who approached me, Scott Heller, he's not my editor. He's not the editor there anymore. So I did work with the new editor, but I don't have the same, that the team who approached me and pushed me, they really did push me. They called me. They were like, we want you at the Times. That's, things change.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's quieted forever at all. I think that's just, I did have an album come out and it did get reviewed in the New York Times. So I think there is a kind of murky.
I would love to see you in New York Magazine or Vanity Fair. Those are my two favorites. I bet you could do something really great in those publications.
I think I should do more of it. I think I need to figure out how to make what I do in this singing thing a little bit more of a system so that I have on season and off, or I have weeks or off, because right now there's, I mean, Tom, I haven't been popular in so long. I don't even remember what it feels like to be popular, but I feel popular. So suddenly I can't really keep up with it. So
you are popular. I really follow.
Popular.
That's my business. That's my business. I mean, I watch all the entertainment shows. I this is part of what I'm all about, covering the arts. I need to know what's going on. And so I just have this sense that, you're on this tidal wave. It's happening,
Yeah, well,
and you don't even know the extent of it, but I'm sure you will know at some point.
Do you know?
Because you can't. You know why? It's because of your schedule. You can't do everything you wanted to do or used to do.
I can't keep up with, I have enough. So, I also have a little bit of a looking at myself, reading these wonderful books I write. I put things on Instagram about, the books I read and things. We all have to know what's enough as well. And once I realized that racing after something was a habit, and it's a habit to always want more, think you need more. But once you realize that the things that you've chosen or that are coming your way that you want, are enough and fulfill you, the funny thing is that more comes because you're taking care and appreciating and not kind of running around begging for stuff.
Well, proof of trying to do it all and, getting lost in the, a certain couple just broke up, and the gossips claimed that it had to do with one of this couple wanted, she was just obsessed with her career.
Are you allowed to say
and he didn't. He wasn't. In fact, he shied away from it. So anyway,
are you allowed to
there's danger. There's some danger involved with your relationships, is it not? Like you have a family and your husband.
Well, text me later who that is, because I'm always interested in these kind of cautionary tales. But,
okay, well,
my husband and
I hope I'm going to become popular, and that I'll have to be very careful about who I talk about.
Well, I'm being witty when I say popular. I'm just so used to being unpopular that
no,
it's popular for the unpopular. It's more just the fact that I'm a little less concerned about.
Believe me, if you do well in Provincetown, you'll do well anywhere.
That's what I think. It's funny you should say that. I thought to myself, if we can have this much fun.
That's a tough crowd, by the way.
That's a tough crowd. Exactly. We had such a good time that I thought to myself, there's got to be about 10,000 more people that are as fun as these guys. Because I want them so badly. I want them in my house. I want to eat them. I want to dance for them.
Well, you know what they say for at least male performers, to become a star, you need to be popular with the gays and the teenage girls.
Very funny. I have to say, though, because you did mention the spousal thing, I have a beautiful husband. Yes.
Tell my listeners about him.
Yes, it's important, too, because I do think we walk that tightrope well. And both of us would be fine if we ever had, well, first of all, if the universe made us have to stop, we would stop. But my husband is Patrick McEnroe, the tennis personality, the tennis player, brother, the handsome brother of John McEnroe. There are two other brothers, but there are three brothers total. And my husband is the youngest brother, and he is the president of the International Tennis Hall of Fame. You'll see him during the US Open on television every day, every minute, all day. And we have beautiful daughters, 3 teenage daughters. And our children one is a tennis player who just went to college last weekend, a week ago today, and our first daughter. And we have twins that are 15. And I always say that I gave birth to the latest McEnroe doubles team.
Do the girls all play tennis? And do you play tennis?
Tom, my line for this was always, I did when we were dating. I don't have so much time, but we did play tennis together. We all went to the Bahamas for 4 days. We had such a busy summer that we saw 4 days where all of us were. And then we got home and we drove her down to Duke. And We played tennis. So as a family, we do play tennis, and it's
How does she like Duke? I've had friends and I dated someone who went to Duke. I have a lot of connections. I love North Carolina.
Oh, Tom, I talk to her 3-4 times a day so far because she's choosing her classes, and she didn't have a bookshelf, and I sent one, and she doesn't know how to put it together. And so I've now sent another that you don't need to put together. She's like, I just don't have time, Mom. And I said to her last night, I said, I feel like you've grown up so much in 1 week. In 1 week. And she said, I think I have.
Did you go through some, were you sad when you had to, when she left? Or did you go with her to help her with her dorm?
Yes, I did. I was there with her twin sisters and her father, and we did 8 hours of decorating, and we made it so beautiful. We just forgot this one bookshelf area that I've sent Amazon boxes that I wish I had done every last thing, because she'll never do that bookshelf.
Did you fall apart when you had to say goodbye?
Well, it was a very weird thing, Tom. They bring you to the stadium. It's a very famous football sort of stadium because Duke has such successful athletes, of which she is one. She's on the tennis team. And you get to the stadium and they says it's family night. And you think, oh, family night. This is amazing. And then there's a sign that says farewell zone. And people were crying, and we were looking around and we were like, why is everyone crying? And then Victoria's like, are we supposed to say goodbye? And we looked at each other, and Victoria is so graceful and strong, and she just burst into tears, and her sisters burst into tears. I thought it was too much. So it was just a lot. And so then she went into the stadium and was down on the floor and then we were up in the stands, and that was the last I saw her.
Oh my.
We were separated at the farewell zone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Tom.
Well, it's going to happen a couple more times, right? And then they're going to be gone. So, but
I know.
It sounds like you have a lot to fall back on.
Well, I have my gypsy life and my beloved community, the Callaways, you, Anthony.
Well, thank you so much.
I have that to fall back on because Beth and artists and people who are creating. I love to be a part of the flow. I have no idea about being, when I was, again, joking when I said popular. I love being involved in my own, and the ability to just keep thinking of something new, like all the things you've been doing, between your writing and the podcast. And it's wonderful to see you keep growing. And I was talking to Marilyn May truly yesterday. I was on her bed, actually, in the hotel.
She's my inspiration. I'm 76, by the way. So look, she just turned 96.
96. Yes, you have
96.
You have a lot of time.
Well, my belief is that, I get this all the time. When are you ever going to stop? And what's the point? As long as I can do it, why not? But artists don't retire, do they? I don't think so.
No, if your flow
is impossible.
Yeah, you're still, I always say that when the idea is ready, it will happen. Mm-hmm. And so you keep getting ideas and they happen because the ideas are ready and they're in need of it.
I'm busier than ever. I mean, I'm producing a documentary. I haven't done that for a while, but I'm just compelled to do the work that I do. And of course, my purpose is to advocate artists like you. There's locally and communities like mine, and you've been to Indianapolis, so there's some good people here. Good art is being made in Indianapolis. Good art is being made everywhere. You travel the country.
All over the world, yeah.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. It's,
I have a pianist in every town.
That if you were any good, you would be in New York. Well, that's just not true anymore.
No. And when I did my album about Sondheim's New York, it was just the New York that he defined, and his work transcends all of that. But I did feel that when the pandemic happened and New York seemed almost endangered in a way. I did think about, like Woody Allen, that Stephen Sondheim really defined New York in his work at a time. And I just wanted to capture that and his imaginative New York as well.
It's tough enough making a living as an artist in a place like New York, but think about living regionally. And, it's really tough to make a living doing what you love. And people in New York have to do day jobs, but here it's especially difficult. So I really am fortunate that I have the opportunity to give them to have a platform.
So good. I appreciate it so much. And I really appreciated that you did that and that Cody Adams from your local television. It was such a great fan of my concert and said it was a perfect date night,
Oh, he'll love that. I just interviewed him today.
You did?
I did. Yeah, I'm interviewing my colleagues
young man.
because they all promote the arts, and that's a really big deal. They know art. They attend performances. They go to theater.
Yes. He's such a good person and such a special man. I told my husband, I said, I know that, you're a national famous person on television. I said, but this Cody Adams could easily explode nationally. Like he's so good. But
he is, oh my gosh, she's going to love hearing that, Melissa. Yeah.
And is Norman Lasseter a local?
Yeah.
I'm excited to see his career, beginning again. And so I hope I'll get back.
Well, you've got a group of friends and new fans. So that's why I asked, are you coming back to Indy?
All right. Well, I'll be happy to come back to Indy. That's for sure.
Okay. Well, let's make it happen.
It's popular.
Well, I can just hear you singing the, Popular from Wicked. You'd be good in that show.
Well, maybe I'll do something that's kind of, ironic or something with that song someday. But anyway.
Yeah, there you go. I can't let you leave without hearing more of your music. And so here's another piece that I want to share with our listeners. Tell us about it.
I'm choosing this one for you because we're talking about creativity and keeping that creative side of ourselves flowing. This is Take Me to the World from my album, Sondheim in the City.
Great. Okay, let's listen.
Let me see the world with clouds, take me to the world, out where I can push through crowds, take me to the world, a world that smiles with streets instead of aisles, where I can walk for miles with you. Take me to the world that's real. Show me how it's done. Teach me how to laugh, to feel. Move me to the sun. Just hold my hand whenever we arrive. Take me to the world where I can be alive. Do you want the world? Why then you shall have the world. Ask me for the world again. You shall have the world, a world of skies that's bursting with surprise, to open up your eyes for joy. We shall see the world come true. We shall have the world. I won't be afraid. With you, we shall have the world. You'll hold my hand and know you're not alone. We shall have the world to keep. Such a lovely world will we.
Well, it goes without saying, I just love you to death as a performer, as a human being. I meant what I said about, you having those three qualities that are just singular, smart, talented, and you're just a nice person. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Tom. This is just amazing to have an opportunity to talk with you. And it's amazing that Zoom can bring us so close,
Our thanks go out to our media sponsor, Urban Times. Urban Times is a monthly news magazine which serves as the official neighborhood newsletter for 16 Indianapolis neighborhoods, offering news about development, arts and entertainment, and from the business community.
Who will take center stage on the podcast next? Your seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez awaits. Follow Tom on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure to visit tomalvarez.studio. Watch Tom every other Thursday on Lifestyle Live on Wish TV, and make sure to listen every week here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.